Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, and thanks for tuning in to the Dealer Insights podcast, where we go under the hood, bumper to bumper, and just about everywhere in between, discussing topics important to dealers of all types and sizes. Your time is valuable, so thanks for riding along for this episode of Dealer Insights.
Welcome back to Dealer Insights. Hey, it's your favorite guys for Dealer Insights. It's Sean and Vinny. Vinny, how's it going?
Good, Sean. How are you today?
I'm good.
Good.
It's October already. Who's going to win the World Series?
Honestly, I don't even follow baseball anymore. I know that's crazy, but the Dodgers.
You will as soon as the Red Sox start playing good baseball again.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, I will. I mean, I've watched some, but I just don't follow it like I used to. For some reason, believe it or not.
You don't give up on baseball, Vinny. It's too good. And, you've taken me. I've been in Fenway Park with you. So,
yeah, but sure.
The Rangers are going to get annihilated starting today in Tampa Bay as they squeaked their way into the playoffs. But hey, for you guys that tune into Dealer Insights, you don't tune in to listen to us talk about sports, although we could do a whole segment. We could do multiple, especially on all of Vinny's favorite teams. But we are getting super close. I wanted to say dangerously close, but there's no real danger to it. We're getting really close to Digital Dealer Vegas. Mm-hmm. We will be on a panel. We'll be taking part in a panel out there talking about customer experience and a lot of the variables relative to that. And I wanted to continue on with that theme on the podcast today. And so I'm going to get right into it. Sure. I think there have been a lot of different shifts and changes in customer service over the past really couple decades, and technology has a lot to do with it. But the question would be, in your mind, the definition and the execution of customer service for car dealers has really transformed, and it did so very much during COVID. What do you think have been the most challenging aspects of adapting to those changes for dealers?
Yeah, sure. So it's an interesting way you put it. The last 3 years has been the most unique 3 years of my life. And I'm sure a lot of people would say the same. And it did, through a lot of curveballs. Dealers and companies like mine and customers have been adapting to all of it. Kind of, right? I mean, the interesting thing is we're still getting similar lead volumes for dealers. We're still getting phone calls. Obviously, there's digital retailing. And now there's a lot of buzz around customer data platforms and AI, right? So how is that all affecting how a dealer does business? When I talk to dealers or when I go visit a dealer, honestly, it hasn't changed too much at the dealer level. They still sell cars. They still desk deals. They still put people in the F&I office. Contrary to what you're hearing in the world that, customers want to have a frictionless experience. That may be true, yet they haven't grown. They haven't grown enough trust with these tools to complete a deal online. Now, do they help? Yes. Again, I'm an old guy, so when I go back pre-COVID, when I go back to my days at the dealer group I worked at, we were doing a lot of those things for consumers. Maybe not as efficiently, but we were running payments for customers. We would, let the used car managers and the general sales managers know that a customer would like to know what their trade's worth before they come in. Customers would, so inventory, we'll do a little quick history, but COVID hit. Everyone said it was going to be a slow recovery for auto. At Strolid, we didn't see that. We saw a massive amount of leads piling up, more than normal. A lot of industry experts were telling me that's because people were bored at home and had nothing to do. And I'm like, I don't think so. People don't just sit at home and go to car dealer websites and shop for cars because they got nothing else to do. They need a car. Anyway, our prediction at Strolid was correct. And then it was slow getting people back into showrooms, especially in certain areas. And then boom, we started selling cars again. And, our business heated up during that time. It was, late 2020, early 2021. And then an interesting thing happened. Because of the shutdown, there were no cars. And I'm not telling everybody things that they don't already know. But that created a new challenge. But it also helped dealers increase profitability on the cars that they had. The consumers paid a higher price and continue to on used. When you're not selling new, there aren't enough used cars in the market to sell. So the price of the used cars go up because some people would prefer buy used to save a little bit of money. I actually don't necessarily. I'm going to predict right now there'll be a big shift back to new if it's not already happening. You're starting to see incentives again. You're starting to see a day supply increase. So how does that affect customer experience? It's been negative for customers in a lot of ways because of lack of inventory and things like that. So the answer to your question is the customer experience is constantly and will continue to evolve and change. Do you really understand that if you're running a car dealership?
Mm-hmm.
And I guess the only way you would understand that is by examining and listening and looking at conversations that are happening between consumers and your BDC or your salespeople. That'll help you understand how to kind of shift towards a better experience, right? But some things are out of your control. I mean, if you don't have the inventory, you don't have the inventory, right?
Yeah, the COVID era was just so. I mean, people like to, and for good reason, talk about how resilient our industry is, and it is. You and I, in our lifetimes, car business has been through some tough changes. COVID was just something so different, right? What you just mentioned, the leverage that it put into the hands of dealers, leverage around profitability, right? So just basic supply and demand, the leverage that it gave to the dealers around, well, if you want to be, and I'm not doing this to say, I'm not disparaging dealers, but there were a lot of dealers that in their communication, it kind of got lazy. It wasn't very laser focused. It wasn't really, I'm going to go out of my way to make sure that the experience we're providing you is one that will make you come back and tell everybody why you loved buying from us or servicing with us. And I started saying this, I want to say it was 2020, that I bought a Tundra, and at that dealership here in the Dallas, Texas area, I asked that dealership because it was still COVID-ish. You could still go in and buy a car, but people were wearing masks and a lot of protections in place, still a lot of fear. And I asked that dealer, with all of the leverage that you have, what are you doing to make sure that it doesn't make you comfortable in this environment, knowing that it's eventually going to swing back around, right? And they actually had an answer for it. And, they had said, well, we didn't have a choice. We had to make really hard decisions around personnel. They couldn't keep their staff the same. But their GM is the guy who ended up telling me that they made choices based on people who had the highest marks around people that wrote great reviews about them, if they got mentioned in a CSI write-up, and I thought that's really smart. And I told him, I said, I think you should continue to keep your eye on that ball very closely, because if the customer perception ends up being that during the COVID era, all you did was took advantage of customers, it could hurt your reputation in a way that might last a lot longer than just the COVID era.
Yeah, and I would like to just add to that, though. You made interesting statement there. I'm a dealer by heart, by trade, right? I grew up in the car business, so I don't think dealers are taking advantage of customers. And I know you didn't mean it that way, but they didn't have any choice. Like, you have a certain gross profit number running a dealership that you need to maintain or exceed to keep everyone in the dealership working. And when you have limited inventory, you have no choice but to maximize the amount of gross you can make on the inventory you have. So this is just COVID obviously created a lot of problems, and it created some opportunities. The problems it created was, frankly, dumping a whole bunch of money into the economy. People had money to spend. They spent it all right. That, eliminated the inventory because of the lack of production. And then now there's no inventory. People still were spending money, and dealers were taking it as they needed to. Now it's changing. I think one of my dealer friends told me recently, 10 of the top 18 manufacturers are over a 50-day supply of new vehicles right now. Which is pretty crazy. I mean, you still have some that are still hard to get. The challenge now is maybe, and I'm not an economist, but logically, the money isn't there now. And the credit ratings are dropping, and the interest rates are rising. And that interest rate rise has a direct reflect on the financial structure of a car dealership because of floor plan interest that they didn't have a year or 2 years ago. A year or 2 years ago, they had no cars in stock, so and they were turning cars fast, so their floor plan interest was non-existent. Plus, they get credits for floor plan from the manufacturer. Now that the inventory is building up, so is the interest. And if those cars sit, the expense grows for the car dealer. Car dealers don't sit around and feel sorry for themselves. They'll adapt just like they did when they had no inventory. Hopefully, the manufacturer supports them. There's obvious challenges with selling electric vehicles right now. No one's buying them. And you get a lot of people argue, oh, they have record sales and blah, blah, blah. Record sales, yeah. But it's like I always say, when I started my business and we got to $1 million in revenue, to go to 2 wasn't hard. But when you get to 10, to go to 20 is very difficult. You know what I mean? So they had nowhere to go but up, is what I'm saying with the electric vehicles. Like, you sell 100, the next year you sell 200, that's 100% increase. They can make it sound really exciting, but it's still a fraction of what's being sold. Internal combustion engines are still, especially economical ones, are still in very high demand, whether it be new or used. And people aren't just jumping on the electric bandwagon. So these are all challenges dealers have to deal with. And to provide a good customer experience through all that is not easy. And we're failing it at Strolid because we have our business has become very complex, a lot more complex than in the past, where we just needed to book appointments. Now we have to look at incoming vehicles. We have to look at what's actually available on the ground and what's not. We have to understand credit is a challenge now. And a lot of people are worried about getting approved. Payments are too high. And dealers, so what we've done at Strolid is we're bridging the gap between that customer and our dealers. And we're trying to train and help motivate and educate our dealers on, you need to help us with this now. We're not only getting appointments, we need your help. And, it's getting back to, we need to move metal, which is good for us because that's our wheelhouse where we can book appointments. The challenge is getting them approved and getting them, and all that. So these digital retailing tools can't understand all of that. AI can't understand all of that yet. And so you still need someone that can look at a deal and say, hey, there's an opportunity here. Even though the customer said they wanted this, maybe we can call them back and talk to them about that and give them a reason to do this temporarily. I mean, OEMs are coming out with like 12-month leases now, which and 24-month leases again, which I think is smart because you need to get that trade cycle going again.
Yeah. Do you think that the digital retailing piece has been more helpful or harmful in the past 5 to 7 years, however long they've kind of been pushing them out there? It's been, gosh, I think, wasn't it Cox that had kind of the first one that came out? I think I was still at so-and-so website provider when the first one came out, because everyone was all the big website providers were going to put theirs in. But anyway, it doesn't matter. So it's been at least 7-ish years since the first one was available out there. Do you think they've been more helpful or harmful to the customer service perspective?
Definitely helpful, but it isn't the answer. It's the interesting part of that question is something I think we should talk about at Digital Dealer is the empowerment of your staff. Because what's interesting about digital retailing tools is dealers have empowered these tools to give customers information, yet their employees aren't able to answer the same questions that a digital retailing tool can answer in a lot of cases. So I'm sure there's a lot of progressive dealers out there that maybe, and I know one in particular, that include the digital retailing tool as part of their sales process when the customer's in the showroom. And we've helped dealers with messaging to the consumers, trying to drive them to tools like their trade if they want information, or payments and things like that. But where the challenge comes in is the vast majority of customers haven't adopted that digital retailing process as a way to buy a car yet. And they still have questions, and they have trust issues about, buying it now.
Yeah.
And they're using it to educate themselves, I think, which is helpful. That's why I say it's helpful, but they're not using it to buy cars. So when you talk about transparency, it has probably put consumers in a better place in terms of feeling comfortable, understanding payments and things like that. The challenge is what they see on that tool might not be what they end up with at the end. I think Toyota came out with a study 10 years ago or more of that, the average customer that submits a lead for a new car, 42% of them end up buying a used car. So what does that tell you, Sean? Just because a customer is starting a process down a digital retailing tool doesn't necessarily mean that they're honed in on the car they want to buy. Maybe they start off with one car and they realize, hey, that's out of my budget. I can't afford $500 a month. Let me look at some other alternatives. And that's where critical thinking in a salesperson comes in. Or maybe you have the digital retailing tool tells you, you've missed some payments on your credit card, so you're at a 14% interest rate. But an F&I manager can look at your credit bureau and say, well, you've made all your payments on a car. I can get an exception and get you to a 9% interest rate. Like a digital retailing tool isn't going to do that. Or digital retailing tool spits out data from the auctions and trade tools and all that and says your car's worth 10 grand. And the dealer only wants to give you 8, or maybe they can give you 12 if they see it and it's, you've taken exceptionally good care of it, or they know they have demand for it, or whatever. So those are the types of things that a digital retailing tool can't do.
And you mentioned this just a couple minutes ago, but all of these, most of what you're talking about, for me, when I put my consumer hat on, these are trust building components of that relationship, of the rapport building. All trust, right? We're going to talk about how much you're going to value my trade in. It's a trust factor. I'm going to think you're full of it, or I'm going to think you're giving me a fair deal. Most, not all, but I would say most people have some idea of either what they think their car is worth or they've actually done some sort of KBB valuation. And so they've got some idea of what they would take for it or what they think it's worth.
Sure.
Whether they used a tool to come up with a market value number or not. That's one area of trust. But all of what we're talking about here, and I think this is probably one of the big factors as why all of the digital retailing tools don't really boast significant percentages of people that go all the way through that process for things that you're mentioning. There are several points along that journey, and that's the journey with the dealership. So however they got there through marketing efforts, then they get to, and we talk about this relative to your business, this life cycle with the customer, right? That's happening starts when they submit a lead, they make a phone call. Now they're inside of the ecosystem of communication with the dealership. If they chose to, and they got there into a digital retailing tool, that digital retailing tool now is basically expected to secure these points of trust all along the way that keeps bringing me closer to, let's do some business together. And that's difficult to do because of a lot of factors. And it may be different for me than it is for other people, but I know for me, it's a lot of money, right? I'm going to now start spending whatever, $600 a month or whatever the average car payment is these days. It's high. Yeah. Affordability has become a real issue over the last several years. So as I'm journeying through with a dealership in their technology, if it misses a beat or two, you might have allowed your digital retailing tool to compromise my ability to trust you, right? And I don't hear a lot of people, I'm sure people are talking about that, but I don't hear a lot of people talking about there's probably a place to blend these things, a hybrid approach, if you will, because there's too many points along the way where you just mentioned this as well. The critical thinking or the dealership thinking, to be even more specific, the nuance that goes on inside of a dealer, some human being that's been doing that like you for decades, you're going to know right off the top of your head, like, I need to address that because that's a concern for the customer. And I don't think that the technology has caught up to being able to do that quick.
It's not so much the technology, Sean. It's selling. Selling to me is a science, and it also requires you to kind of understand different people in different situations. We talk about meet and greet, needs analysis, and all those types of things. But ultimately, it's about respect for the customer's time. And that dealers that understand what I just said will succeed into the future. And the ones that want to drag them through a long, drawn-out process are going to fall behind. And this technology is moving rapidly, but I don't think dealers have to worry about being on an AI program or digital retailing tools as much as they have to kind of refocus. How do we save our customers time? Because a commitment, every sale in order to sell, you need to gain multiple commitments from a customer, not just the sale, not just the close and commit to buy. First is time. They need to give you their time, and you need to respect that. And then you need to find and explore ways to work together. And, do they like the product? Do you have the product that they like? And then you got to collaborate with them and, come up with solutions. If it isn't exactly the car they like, you need to kind of understand that and give them, valid reasons why they should consider that. And if you can do all of those things and resolve all their concerns and propose solutions, right? Those are all commitments on the customer's part. If you can do all of those, then you can close the sale. And so a digital retailing tool can't possibly respect all of those steps, right? And AI can't yet. And I don't know if AI ever will, because some of that comes with a lot of experience. It comes with people's, I talked about this in the last podcast, but there are basically three sections of your brain, right? You have the part that I can train you. I can sit here and teach you what I just said. And I have a saying in my meetings from the movie White Men Can't Jump. You can either listen to me or you can hear me. Because a lot of people listen, but they don't actually hear what it is that I'm saying, right? And so what should you be hearing? Time. How do I save my customer more time? So Strolid's whole initiative is to find ways to help dealers speed up the process, to help the customer save time, because that commitment is so valuable. And we sell time to our customers by working with us. My job here is to make your visit more enjoyable and efficient. And what I'm going to do is give you the name of one of our managers. That way, then when you get to the showroom, you won't need to repeat yourself. All the information of everything discussed will be ready for you. And then the dealer needs to play a part in that, right? Obviously, and actually do that for the customer. A digital retailing tool, everybody's perception is it's saving the customer time, yet no one's buying the car through the tool. Well, less than 2% are. Maybe that grows to 10%, Sean. From my understanding of marketing, and you're a marketing guy, you probably know this better than I do, but isn't it like you need to get to 18, 20% before you get mass adoption?
Yep.
Yeah. Well, we're not there yet.
No. Yeah. No.
I don't know.
The leading edge has shed a lot of blood.
Yeah. And until people are willing to say, I'll take the 14% interest rate instead of trying to have the dealer help me get a 9, or I'll take the $8,000 for my trade when the dealer might be able to give me 10. There's a bartering part of this, right? Like housing. You used to be able to go and make an offer on a house. Now they're selling faster than they can. No one's saying that the real estate agents or the owners of these homes are taking advantage of the people buying the homes. It's just the market. You know what I'm saying? So and the market shifts, and you need to be able to adapt and shift with the market. And we try to work with our dealers to do that. Anyway, that's a good place to park that comment. It's like there are steps to a sale that require critical thinking, require emotional aspects, and require your ability to listen and kind of move in different directions with the customer. And that's something I don't think AI can do yet. Maybe hopefully retired when it figures out how to replace human beings.
Well, we've touched on this just a little bit in episodes on the AI, on the artificial intelligence side of things, and automation rules. And there have been plenty of people saying they have AI when they just have kind of advanced automation rule settings within whatever their tool or service is. And now there's all kinds of AI, and everyone's playing around with ChatGPT and there's just so many tools. It's mind numbing. But when it comes to our industry and AI, specifically customer service, you've shared with us before around the sentiment analysis, right? So a digital retailing tool, maybe there's one that's starting to incorporate or thinking about this, but I don't think they have any idea of how to understand the sentiment of the customer as they try to use that tool. And so much happens when you begin to communicate with the dealership and how you are, how fast you respond to them. Do you have the answers to the right questions? Like you've mentioned before, there's just so many nuances, so many variables. Do you think there's a place, or I know there's a place for it. Where do you think one of the most significant places that will improve the customer experience will be relative to AI for dealers to glean insight that will help? Whether they're using a DR tool, whether they're using that plus people, whether they don't use one, AI is going to have a role in a lot of this that impacts the customer experience. Do you have any thoughts on where you think that some of the most significant places are going to be?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I mean, from our perspective, yeah. So first of all, I don't want to make it sound like I'm anti-AI. We grew up in a generation, Sean, where we got to see life before and after technology, right?
Yeah.
And
True.
So I was always intrigued, like when the internet came out, there were a lot of people afraid of the internet. Clearly I wasn't. I embraced it and built a career around, BDC and sales process. And a lot of that was due to advancements in technology, advancements in marketing and lead generation and all that kind of stuff. And I always embraced, social media. I embraced, big data. I'm a data guy first, and then sales, obviously, but I'm also a problem solver. I love solving problems, and I like making, I used to have teachers in school that used to say I was lazy. It wasn't that I was lazy. I just didn't like working on stuff that had no benefit to me. Like, how is this going to make my life easier? Learning algebra, for example, right? and don't get me wrong, I was probably dead wrong, and I hope there are no young kids listening to me saying, "Oh, I don't need to go to school. I can be a successful business guy." But the point is, I'm always looking for shortcuts because I don't like working in a CRM. I don't like all the tedious button pushing and all that. I like talking to people. I like the emotional connection. I like the thrill of the sale, right? Like, I love being able to help a customer, because selling is all about helping. I want to find a solution for you. I'm a problem solver. And when I do that, I want to close you and sell you. And so that kind of stuff gets me really, really excited. And where AI can play a part in all that is, I can't possibly run a dealership or a company like Strolid, or any other company for that matter, and listen to every single interaction that comes into my business and hope that my people handle customers the way I want them to all the time. We've all often told dealers that come and speak to us, like, we're not perfect, we're human beings, but we do have a process, and the process is consistent, and we follow it consistent. What that does is it produces data that you can rely on when you're making marketing decisions, or you're looking at inventory and things like that. And we provide a ton of data to our dealers, but there's certain things that I can't look at because I'm not a robot. I can't ingest a whole, 45,000 leads and, 100,000 in and outbound phone calls a month. Like, that's kind of what we're getting here. But AI can do that for me.
Mm-hmm.
And it can also understand the sentiment of all those conversations. So I can look at just customers that maybe were upset. I can look at customers that are engaged and why we didn't get an appointment. Because frankly, a lot of leads that dealers get, there's no engagement. And that's why their appointment set rates are low. It has nothing to do with the BDC or the salespeople. If you're following a process that's consistent and the customer just never picks up the phone, responds to an email, or responds to a text. So AI can examine a ton of data, which I can't do, and then give me some indications about what's happening. And it's not always 100% right, but being a data person, that when you're looking at large amounts of data, there's a bell curve, right? There's outliers. You want to examine those outliers to find out, like, why is this person an outlier? Why is this person an outlier? And hopefully most of it falls within the scope of what you're trying to accomplish. And then you understand the data points to make decisions on what's happening if things are shifting. For example, we're ingesting a lot of leads. Strolid can tell when the market's down and lead volumes are dropping, or call volumes are increasing or dropping, and at a bigger scale than a single point dealership can. And to me, I'm excited about what AI can do, because we're summarizing these conversations and we're going to be able to push them into CRMs in the first quarter of this year. Our dealers are going to be thrilled with that, because instead of having my people type in all the notes of what they talked about, that's an efficiency. It saved my people time, but it didn't replace their job of talking to the customer. Another thing about AI that I found very interesting recently, I shared this with you already offline, but I, didn't realize that a lot of these so-called AI companies that are popping up, they're nothing more than, hey, Mr. Dealer, give us answers to a whole bunch of questions so our tool can respond the way you want them to respond. I'm like, really? That's your AI? Like, because it's really, all that is, the AI has to understand the question, right? But then the responses are predetermined. In a lot of cases, it is that way. And it's kind of funny that I'm like, that's not as scientific as I thought it was. That's not like out of space, like alien stuff like I thought it was. So what we're doing is we're actually taking the conversations that are actually happening, not what the dealer thinks is happening, or what he thinks you should say. These conversations are now being ingested into various AI machines. So you could call us AI, but we're more like robot food, as Thomas calls it. We're feeding the robots the data, and it's telling us what's actually happening, which is really, really exciting. So that's stuff that we're working on, as you know, and that's all stuff that I wish we had in place today, but it's coming along really well.
Well, on a smaller scale, there's a couple things just in what you shared that a couple light bulbs went off for me. Not in just our industry, but many industries over the last, call it 10 to 15 years. We started to hear people talk about big data, and then people were like, okay, big data, where does it come from? What do you do with it? And then people started to talk about, well, you need, actionable data, things that like, it's not just big data. It's data that tells you, hey, this is an issue. Maybe it's good, maybe it's bad, but it sets up what you should do. This data lays it out for you. And on a smaller scale, people that have started to use, for example, ChatGPT, that seems to be pretty common for a lot of people now. You're essentially prompting ChatGPT to write something based on your prompts. And you can be as simple as you want and get, it's a decent result because you didn't ask for anything other than, write me a short story about Curious George going to the zoo and seeing a monkey that looks just like him or something like that. And all of a sudden, it just writes a cool little story. But what I'm finding the more that I, learn is that it's just like what you said, when you have a lot of data, right? And you have the capability of an AI engine that can interpret, normalize, segment, understand sentiment. Like there's just so many different things that you can ask it to do. ChatGPT, just a smaller scale. If you prompt the living daylights out of it, you get a better result. And so if you take the Curious George goes to the zoo and you gave it a lot more detail and you said maybe in 500 words or more said, and I want the story to feature, a little side story that's happening between Curious George and his owner, and so on and so on.
Stop you for a quick second, though. What you're doing is you're feeding it information, and then it's rethinking through it. But you have to feed it something. Is my point? What I was saying earlier. Like it's not going to just know unless you feed it what you want it to say. And then the next person that comes along might have the same idea as you, but might interpret it different to the machine because they're a human. And not everybody's going to tell ChatGPT how to rewrite Curious George the way you asked it to. And then then the results you get, you might look at, which I do with ChatGPT all the time. I think it's too fluffy, to be honest with you, for me. It can't write like emails or like meeting notes or like I asked it to run a meeting for my leadership call, and it was just way too like they would know that's not me talking.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, the interesting part about what we're talking about though, Sean, is the information, the big data, the CDPs that are now another buzzword out there, digital retailing. All it's doing is telling us things. It's not selling cars, but it's telling us things that we need to take action on. And that's where the human being comes in.
Yeah.
Who takes the action? Who feeds it the information? What is that information that's that the input is the output what you want? And you need to adapt and change that because, my son is at University of New Hampshire and some kid I saw build an app that can tell whether you used AI to write a paper. And I told my son, I'm like, you better be careful if you use a ChatGPT in college. He says, oh no, they have the ability to know if you used AI or not. I'm like, how? Like, because I could go in and have it spit out information and then rewrite it with this, the concepts that the structure that they put it in, and I could go in and rewrite some of it. So I'm not afraid of AI, buddy. Like I'm excited for it. I think it's the next internet revolution. It's just there'll be winners, there'll be losers. There'll be some people that make it sound bigger than life. And there'll be some people that put it to practical use and to help their businesses and help their people help training. I mean, there's so many opportunities with it that I don't even know where to begin. I'm like a kid in a candy store right now trying to figure out what I can do with it because it's so exciting to me. It's not scary at all. The only thing that scares me is, that the people out there can use it for, malicious things. And that's a big worry. I think everyone should be worried about that kind of stuff, but.
Yeah, that gets, that's a whole other podcast, but when people start talking about Neuralink, right? And Elon Musk plugging Neuralink into people's brains. And I think they're already doing that type of testing, and they're about to start now finding.
Good luck trying to plug something into my brain, Sean. That's the whole point. Like, who's going to let them do it? Like, I'll tell you one I saw that was really scary. Is like kids post videos on social media of themselves talking. There was one where the guy, some criminal basically took the voice recording and used that voice recording to mask a message to the girl's family saying, "We have your daughter and we want $1 million. And then in the background, she's like, "Daddy, please pay them all they want," and stuff like that. And it was her voice.
I have heard.
And it wasn't her. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, there's going to be a lot of criminal minds out there that are going to take advantage of some of this technology. There's no question. That is a threat. Scam
in and of itself is going on. A lot. You're not the first person I've heard talk about that type of example where they AI the voice and then which is absolutely.
Sean, is there any criminal? Has there been any increase in cyber criminal activity since the internet emerged? Of course. Yeah. It's going to happen with AI too. It's just a matter of hopefully we have smart enough people in the government that can, figure out how to shield us from some of this stuff.
I'm just going to move up the mountains after Digital Dealer.
Not to get way into outer space here, but what Thomas invented, which is the VCon, is a conversational standard. So it's standardized conversational data. The reason the IETF is interested in it is because it has the ability to mask personal information, and your voice is personal information, your face is personal information, as well as your social security number, date of birth, and other things that you might share through like a WAV file. So we're in front of that at Strolid. We're like at the cutting edge of that. And that's really super exciting, even though most people aren't paying attention to it yet. Thomas is, thank God, and I'm blessed to have him here. And we're doing a lot of good stuff with robot food, but that's one of them, is we can prevent, people from taking consumer information.
Well, all of that's the perfect place to end the episode, because that's all perfect. I agree with you. There's parts of AI outside of AI as a tool set for our industry and many others. That stuff doesn't scare me at all. I'm excited by it. I lose sleep over it because I'm literally either using, learning, or getting better at a lot of different AI tools for a lot of different reasons. And so I love that. I'm like you. I'm excited about that. I also, and I think you and I definitely agree, and you're already talking about how you guys are there. AI is going to be a great thing as it relates to the customer experience inside of dealerships. It'll become a matter of choice for dealers to recognize, and when they decide that's where the direction they need to go into. And I would say, I think every dealer, as they consider customer experience and all the things that we talk about, omni-channel, did digital retailing serve us? Is it serving us as well as it can? I think we all know that it's not. And I think that what dealers hopefully are seeing, and that we talk about a lot, is this next wave of technology, or let's call it AI. It's going to have a huge impact on the customer experience. And depending on where you stand on it and how soon you start to adopt it and figure out how to make it work inside of your business, will determine how soon it starts to pay dividends. Because I think it will.
Definitely.
I think it will.
I would say that if I were a dealer, my advice would be to not shy away from it, embrace it, and see what parts of it you can use to help improve your business. And there'll be more and more coming. So don't get overwhelmed by every salesperson that pitches you with an AI tool and think that they have the the missing link to your success. It never is. It never has been. Even the tools we're building, I think dealers are going to love it. However, they're going to have to take action on that information for it to work properly. You know what I'm saying? So like, it's not going to just sell cars for them. It's going to help them identify car buyers at a higher rate, which is excellent. And I'm sure we'll figure out more stuff that we can build out for dealers as time goes on. I'm still a data guy, so there will be segments of data in our dealer portal, but I'm looking forward to talking more about this at Digital Dealer when we get out there.
Me too. Before you know it, we'll be out there in Vegas talking about it. So hopefully everybody's enjoyed this podcast episode. And if you're going out to Digital Dealer in Vegas, make sure you go out of your way to come and see us. Our panel is at 1:00 on Wednesday. So if you have questions about that, you can reach out to us. If you have questions about this podcast episode, if you like it, if you love it, or none of the above, as I always say, we still like to hear from you. So this podcast, Dealer Insights, only gets better with your comments and questions and feedback and recommendations. So feel free to drop them in the comments section, especially on the YouTube version of these episodes. You can also email any interested information to us at info@strolid.com. And until next time, stay strong and solid, and you'll never miss. Until next time.
Thanks, Joe.